Michael with United Veterans Worldwide, excited today to meet with Adam Bagley. He lives in my area, and I came to hear some of his stories at church, actually, of all places, and really had a profound experience listening to his stories. One, it was kind of triggering for me at the time when I was going through some of my own healing mentally, but it was also so healing to hear his experiences and to see his faith and his triumph over trauma, and wanted to have him on the channel today. So, Adam, welcome to the show, and thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to be here.
Will you tell us a little bit about who you are and maybe what brought you here today?
Sure. I was a staff sergeant in the United States Army. I joined the Army in 2003 out of high school. I was a senior in high school when the towers got hit and felt the urge to serve and felt that patriotic pull, and so joined. And I did decent on the ASVAB test and decent enough to be a medic and stuff. And I wanted growing up to be a doctor, and so thought that was maybe a good route to get in and start my medical training, and also down the road hopefully help pay for some schooling. And so got in and went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri for basic training, and then down to Fort Sam Houston for AIT, and initially joined the Idaho National Guard, and was at the end of AIT kind of was hearing some rumors that we might get deployed, and called home, and sure enough some of those rumors were true. And so I got home in May of 2004, and got a call about a week later, and we were getting deployed. And so we went down to Fort Bliss and did a little bit of a train up, and then to Fort Polk for JRTC, and then we got like a 2-week leave, and then off to Iraq for a year. So it was about an 18-month deployment. And so, yeah, then I did that. I came home, was in the National Guard for a few years, and then got an opportunity to transfer down to a special operations unit in Utah, and go to airborne school, and then go to Special Operations Combat Medic School, or SOCM, which is like the first, 5 or 6 months of the 18 Delta training.
Yep.
So did that, and then at the end of all that, did a few other courses, and then got deployed to Afghanistan for about 4 or 5 months in 2009. And then I was home for a few years, transitioned from what was the 197th Troops Battalion, got transferred out of Utah to Texas, and they transferred all of the Utah National Guard soldiers that were in that unit to the 19th Special Forces Group into the support battalion. And I finished my career there, and with one more deployment to Afghanistan, and that was in 2013, and then got out in 2015. So that's kind of my path.
Yeah. So a couple questions. So just to make sure I got the timeline right, 2005 to 2006, or was it 2004 to 6?
04 to 05.
04 to 05.
When I was in Iraq. Yep. I got home in November of 05.
All right, so let me think back to those years. I came in as a corpsman with the Navy, so the medic thing is real to me as well. And I came in 99, and 04 I was I think I was in Charleston at the time, serving in a hospital there. But that was the start of, that was early on. So you guys are still wearing the beige camouflage.
Yeah,
you're in
the desert camo,
slick Humvees, no up armor, none of that stuff.
Yeah, we had. Yeah, I mean, there was some Kevlar stuff in some of them, but yeah, for the most part, they put like a steel door on it, but it was only like a 1/2 inch thick. It wasn't really up armored at all, and those were, what are they? I think 10, what are they, 1025s? Is that what they were?
I don't remember.
Humvees or something. Anyway, yeah. So we were in those for the first couple months of the deployment. So we got there, December, January timeframe, and then actually, I was in one of those vehicles and got hit by an IED that killed the driver. I was sitting in the back passenger seat. And after that, they wouldn't let us go out in those vehicles anymore. You had to be in one of the up armor ones, and they were kind of starting to roll those out a little bit more.
So that was in 2005 when you hit the IED?
That was April 28th of 2005. So
IEDs were just starting to be implemented at that point, and you guys were the first. You guys were the first units to really start to engage with that type of technology. Those hidden bombs in the roadsides or in the trash or whatever, right?
When I think by the end of the deployment, a whole year, there was only 2 days in the whole year that nothing happened in our whole area of operation. I mean, every day we were taking rockets into the base, or an IED went off, or we were taking small arms fire, or whatever it was. There was always something going on, and in fact, in my year there, I got blown up 5 different times by IEDs. The worst one was obviously that first one that killed the driver. Nobody else was killed, thankfully, and stuff. At least in my company, there were some other casualties and stuff, obviously, from the whole battalion and things like that. IEDs were crazy, and I think, I don't know this for sure, but I got told that our area where we were at was the highest area of IEDs, the EOD, the Air Force EOD that was with us, was the busiest in our area of operation than all of Iraq. I mean, IEDs were a big thing.
What part of Iraq were you guys in?
So I was on a little base called Bob McHenry, which was southwest of Kirkuk, about an hour and a half.
Okay.
Something like that.
So you were like mid to northern Iraq?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Kind of northeast of the Tigris River. Up in that area. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, when I didn't end up going over there until you were in Afghanistan for the first time. So end of 2007, 2008.
Okay. Yeah.
And actually was in the same area as a friend of ours in our stake who deployed to southern Baghdad. That was my area too. What we call the Triangle of Death. It wasn't as much the Triangle of Death for me as it was for him, because he was there 2005 to 2006, I think, or 6 to 7, one of the two, and it was just...
Yeah, I think in 07, 08, 09, I think it was kind of... They were decreasing troops in Iraq and increasing troops in Afghanistan at that point, I think, right?
Yep.
Things were kind of winding down a little bit more in Iraq and picking up in Afghanistan, so...
Yep. We were trying to transition over to Iraqi lead the patrols, but it wasn't just a few years later when ISIS kind of jumped in there and took out everything that we trained and built and established, and now they're doing the same thing in Afghanistan now, which is really sad, because they're killing the Taliban, trying to implement a more strict version of Sharia law. It's a mess over there.
It is a mess. Seems like an awful waste,
it's hard to even talk about how frustrating it is. But well, brother, my hat's off to you for deploying so early in the conflict, and not just covering Iraq, but also Afghanistan, which is a totally separate area of operation, different TTPs, different tactics, different mindset, different skill set. I never deployed to Afghanistan. I prepared troops for it, and I was active Army from 2006 until I retired in 2015. I medically retired because I was wounded in my shoulder and couldn't continue serving. So that was I think that was a 17-year career almost for me.
Yeah.
So you were in Afghanistan 2009. Tell me about Afghanistan. What was that like for you?
Yeah. So I was attached to the 7th Special Forces Group, and we were in Shindad, which is kind of on the west side of Afghanistan. We were about 30 miles from the Iranian border out there. And, you know, the Special Forces at that time in Afghanistan was a force multiplier. So we would train commandos and take commandos out on missions, and we would go out with, you know, I don't know, 100, 125 commando company, and there'd be about 12 or 15 Americans, and we were just kind of there for support and try to help them, guide them into villages, and then they kind of would kick down the doors and search for Taliban and weapons and things like that. So we would fly out on helicopters, they'd drop us off, and so that's kind of what the mission was there. It was a little more boots on the ground. Iraq was a lot of counter IED and mounted patrols, things like that. We did do some village clearing, things like that, kicking down doors and stuff like that. But yeah, Afghanistan was totally different in that sense, and got into, you know, Iraq was a lot of roadside bombs getting blown up and not knowing who. They were sitting off in the weeds, you know, 2 miles away, blowing them off remotely.
Right.
Hard to engage with anybody. It was very frustrating to just continue to get blown up day after day and not have any kind of outlet. Afghanistan was a little more direct contact with small arms, firing RPGs and stuff. We get into some gunfights and things like that, and both deployments really. So. Yeah,
that's rough stuff. Transitioning from two different area of operations, different environment. I've heard that the Afghans were easier to work with. They were more loyal until they weren't.
Yeah. I mean, there's always that's my second deployment. There was like a green on blue incident and stuff in our. I didn't know any of the guys that were killed personally, but they were in our company and stuff. That they were out on, you know, training and training some commandos, and the guns were turned on them and stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, you always like that was hard. Like you were trying to train these guys to take over their own country, and you never knew when they would turn the gun on you, you know, and you're using live ammo and stuff. It was a tricky business for sure.
Yeah, who was the guardsman who was, or maybe he was a reservist, I don't remember, from Utah who was killed? Do you remember him? Major, I think it was.
Yeah, I can't remember. I don't remember names.
I remember going to Utah State for a Veterans Day event, and I think his wife was the main speaker. And she was powerful. Yeah, her vision for life and his sacrifice was just amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm terrible with names. I can't remember names, and I remember what happened. I can remember faces, but names are just tough for me. So
yeah, well, you know, I was going to make a joke and say, you know, it's a TBI moment. We can't really remember the names, but you know, when you've had 5 IEDs where you've been in the vehicle, like it rattles your brain.
Oh, it's I mean, it's indescribable. I you know, can't really. Yeah, how do you explain that to somebody? You just like you get smacked around. It's like getting smacked around, and just like takes a few minutes for your kind of equilibrium and hearing, and there's like that. I don't know. Does Saving Private Ryan when he's going on the beach and he gets all that buzzing in his ears and disorientation? That's as close as I could. Until you experience it, you just don't know, and it's each time rattled my brain, and I've had way too many concussions, and so I don't know what the lasting effects of that will be. hopefully nothing too terrible. I have headaches and stuff like that, but what do I do about that? So
Yeah, a lot of that stuff's going to be classic TBI stuff, and doctors will scan the brain of us later on after years, and they'll be like, there's nothing on the brain. But we're learning through science and neuropathology now that any kind of big damage to the brain won't show, but it'll have effects. It'll have effects in mood and sleep and brain fog, right? I never hit an IED, but I remember coming out of the gym one day. I was attached to the 6th Iraqi Army, setting up a tactical operations center with them in southern Baghdad. And about, I don't know, half a mile, maybe a quarter of a mile away was an apartment building. And somebody had parked a big truck laden with explosives and detonated. And I saw this massive explosion, and I'm just wearing my PT gear. And then the shockwave hit and threw me into the wall behind me and knocked me out. And I don't think I was out very long because I came to pretty quick to see all the devastation. But getting the brain rattled that many times, man, I'm still dealing with those issues today.
Yeah. I mean, we learned a lot throughout the war. TBIs and things like that. Initially, so early on, I get my brain rattled and I was back out there the next day and stuff, which we've learned now is terrible for your brain. You know, concussions are kind of a 1 + 1 = 3 kind of situation. The more you get, the more, and if your brain hasn't healed completely, it's really not good. So luckily, I think mine were spaced out enough that it wasn't like a day after day kind of thing. But yeah, I was there for a year, but it really didn't start till between April and November. I was 5 different IEDs, and so it was crazy. So
it is crazy, and now you and I are back in a civilian capacity, working jobs. When we experience trauma, and you talk about the reaction after being hit, and this loss of equilibrium, loss of awareness, ringing in the ears, repeated headaches later on. How did your mental health fare as a result of some of that trauma?
Yeah, initially when I came home from Iraq, I struggled a lot. I mean, in Iraq, any piece of trash on the side of the road could be a bomb, and so driving down the road, if I saw a piece of trash, I was swerving in lanes, and I was dangerous. I never got in an accident, luckily, but that was crazy. I lived in Idaho, and I lived close to BYU, Idaho, just down the hill from BYU, Idaho. And one night they were lighting off fireworks for some celebration in there, and I went right back to it. I thought I was in the middle of it. I was getting my son he was like 9 months old. I was getting my son out of the car seat, and I dove right on top of him. And those things, they were tough. And my wife knew, I wasn't right. And she worked in a medical clinic and actually talked to one of the doctors, and the doctors pulled me in one night when I came to pick her up from work and talked to me about it. And I didn't want to talk about it. I was mad. I was mad that doctor thought he had the right to talk to me about it. I had a lot of anger, frustration. Obviously, all those IEDs blow up on you, and you got nobody to take it out on and stuff. It was frustrating. And, I eventually, I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know who to talk to about it. I didn't want to talk to anybody about it. And eventually, we moved down here to Cache Valley, and it was my cousins that got me opened up and started getting me talking about it and stuff. And I found that suppressing all that was not a good thing for me. I should talk about it, even if it was somebody that wasn't in the Army. And in fact, at that time, so that my 2 cousins I was talking to, one of them actually joined after, and so he's a veteran now and stuff like that. But at the time, he was not in the Army. But I think opening up to them and talking about it helped me realize like I got to get some stuff off my chest and talk about it and stuff. And so I've had some good people to talk to about it. And I had a really good friend that was in the Army with me that went to high school with me, and he was a medic, and we talked about it, and just I don't know, we would look back at some of those experiences, and all the time just we would be driving a drill together and stuff and just look at each other and like, I can't believe that we have survived some of the stuff that we've gone through, And after each deployment, it was just like, I can't believe we survived that one. And then the next one, it was like, I can't believe we survived that one. It's just more and more piled on. And I look back at it now, I'm like, holy cow, what? I can't believe I was 20 years old in a foreign country, getting blown up, and I survived all this.
Yep. Yeah, it's surreal to think back on the service, and I've been running.
It seems like a different life.
Oh, it's a different person almost sometimes.
Oh yeah.
My wife tries to remind me, and she's like, "Michael, you're not a soldier anymore." And I said, "Bull. I think I'm always a soldier." You're
always. I think people get into the military and they sign this 6-year career or 6-year contract or whatever. You're signing up for active 4 years, but you sign up for life. The I don't know, mental trauma and the scars that are there are for life. You're never going to get rid of it.
It's one of the reasons I started this channel. Maybe it's 4.5 months ago now, and over 60,000 subscribers globally, mostly international. Because I recognize the need for veterans across the globe who've experienced what you and I have, and where they don't have resources, and nobody talks about mental health or about recovery or wellness, and they just shrink all by themselves, and they're not reporting veteran suicides on a global scale. They don't report those things. In the U.S., they're keeping track finally in doing that, but they don't do that, so we don't know. We don't know. My second deployment was to East Africa, and I ran a team that went across 8 different East African countries, and a lot of those countries were all fighting our proxy war in Somalia for us. After we left Somalia and experienced deaths, the U.S. nope, we're not going back in there, but we're going to hire African countries undertrained, underutilized, under-equipped, and send them to go fight the battle, and they got torn up. And I came in contact with some of those veterans, and it was the most horrific scene of burns and mutilation and loneliness and isolation because they had no resources. And I said, man, I want to change that. I want someone to see this interview today, Adam, with you and me, and to be like, I can identify with those guys. I know what it's like to look down that dark alley. I know what it means to have chronic pain or headaches. Yeah, I'm with you guys, right?
Yeah.
And it's such an important message that you're sharing today and sharing these experiences, and I feel it. I feel it inside. It's real. And
it's real, and it's difficult. I mean, you have your good days and your bad days, and there's just, you got to live with it, and you got to get through each day and stuff. And that friend that I was talking about earlier, this is hard for me to talk about, but he was a great friend, my best friend, and he struggled. He's struggling, and about 2.5, almost 3 years ago now, he was struggling and had pain and was having some paranoia thoughts and things, and things were struggling, and he was actually down in Salt Lake. He lived in Idaho, but he was down in Salt Lake getting ready for a surgery one night, and was struggling, and called his wife and asked her and the kids to come down and be with him. And she got down there and knew he was having a real struggle that night, and something snapped. He was such a good dude. Something snapped in him, and he thought people were after him, and he drove off into West Valley City, or he drove off and abandoned his car, took his pistol, and wound up hijacking a car on an off ramp and on Interstate 15, and then drove off into West Valley City with police following him. And he got out of the car and started shooting at police, which was not him, not ever him, But I think he was back in the fight in Iraq and Afghanistan. And anyway, he wound up getting shot and killed by the police. I mean, it was just a terrible, terrible accident, leaving his wife and 2 kids. And, I felt like a long time, like he was on every deployment with me. I could relate to him and stuff like that. And now that person's gone. You just can't. It was really hard to get through that. And no, like I felt like he was the only person I really related to, because he kind of knew. We had talked so much about, we were never really on any missions together because we were 2 different medics and stuff, and he would go on a mission and I would go on a mission, but we knew what it was like. He was on the same bases I was at a lot, and so it's hard, and so the struggle continues for these veterans, and I feel for them. I'm lucky enough to be, I feel like, stable enough that I'm not, not in any of those situations, and I have a wonderful wife that supports me and stuff like that. But if you're struggling, I just find someone that you can relate to and talk to them about it, because people care about you even though you don't feel like they do.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that experience. And that story made national news. I remember when it happened, and when I first heard it, I thought how unfair that we couldn't have handled it a different way, because I knew of veterans who struggled in that same way, who ended up taking their own life, including one of my best friends. And it's horrible. I interviewed a new buddy of mine in Canada. His name's Aaron, and he was an operator with the Canadian Army. He did a deployment. He's an advocate for veterans wellness, and he created a program with the Toronto Police, which is where he works today, called the Military Veterans Wellness Program. And what the initiative is to go to every province in Canada and get the police in that province to follow this program, which is, as soon as you come upon a scene and you've got a violent person and you figure out that they're a veteran, you immediately follow a different protocol. You bring another veteran in, you get the national hotline talking to them directly, you just hand them a phone and back up, and they work with them differently so that they can bring them back down to reality. And they are saving lives in Canada, and that program is being taken to Australia, to Ukraine, and now into the United States. They hit Boston 2 months ago and started teaching that program how to recognize veterans, so that we don't end up with them killing somebody or themselves, or getting killed by uniformed first responders who don't want to do that either.
I held no ill will toward the police officers that were involved in that. They were just doing their job. And it's just a tragic thing. And I miss my friend. But it is what it is. You got to kind of move on with life.
Yeah, the sad thing is that your friend wasn't there mentally. Like you said, he would never have done that. My friend would never have driven his car on the tracks and waited for the train to hit him. Like he was not a coward. He was a fighter. Why would he do that? Like he just wasn't in the proper frame of mind, and it's sad when they go that direction. So Adam, you've shared some hard experiences with us, and I know you've got 100 more stories we don't have time to talk through today, but tell me about your journey from these experiences where you mentioned it was hard when you came home. How have you arrived at the place where you are today, where you can go to work, where you can have joy with your family, where you can serve in your church callings? Like, how do you get to that point?
Yeah, I mean, it's a path for sure, and sometimes it's a long and lonely one, but I think, through faith and through, our the atoning sacrifice of our Savior, like, I have kind of come to the realization, like, it's all going to be all right in the end. And I don't, I let go of my anger. There's no, like, there's just, that ultimately we'll all be judged in the end, and our Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ will take care of all that. And I've just kind of let those things go and know that, I don't know, maybe I'm a stubborn person, but I can't let some of the tragedies in my past make it so that I can't be what's the word? Like a productive person. And I got a lot of life to live. And so even through all of this, my 12-year career in the military, I worked my way through school. It took me 14 years to get my bachelor's degree, and then eventually go on and get my master's degree in physician assistant. And so now I'm a PA, and I work in the ER, and
I love it.
I can't let those things get me down to the point where I can't be a productive person, a good citizen, a good neighbor, a good person to others around me. And I'm not owed anything. I think there's a lot of, and I'm not trying to be harsh or anything like that. A lot of veterans think that they're just owed everything and they don't need to work the rest of their life. They don't need to be a productive member of society or anything like that. But you're not really owed anything. You need to continue on and be a good brother or sister or aunt or uncle or whatever it is to whoever it is. You got to kind of continue on and be that upstanding citizen that stood up once for their country. Continue to be that kind of person. And just because you've had some tragedies in life, don't let it get you down. And I don't know. So I guess that's just my driving force.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be a good person. I continue to try to serve others in the ER, and I always just try to serve others in church callings or whatever. I'll just do, I'll try to be that person and give the shirt off my back to anybody
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess that's what drives me, and that's what's got me through, I think, a lot of it.
Yeah, I love that. And we talk openly on this channel about what it means to be productive. When I started this wellness journey on this channel, I didn't want to be a hypocrite. I didn't want to pretend like everything was always good.
It's not always good.
No, I just came off vacation, and probably half the days I was struggling mentally. I was angry, and there really wasn't a reason to be angry. I was on vacation of all things, but those moments still hit that show me that I'm not done healing. And I think that goes for all of us. But this channel really focuses on what does it take, and so for me it was, where am I at spiritually? Where am I at physically? Am I sitting all the time? Am I just closing the door, sitting in the dark? Like, what am I isolating from people? Which, I was. I put on unwanted weight. I wasn't eating healthy. I was just trying to cope with that. It was better than turning to alcohol or hard drugs. I just turned to food. And then I started to implement some other things like connectivity again, connecting with people. And this channel's made it possible to reach out to people just like you, Adam, who have stories to tell and experiences that will strengthen all of us. And all of those different pieces are all levers we can pull to try to get out of our own heads and get back out and to be productive. And in no way do I ever condone somebody sitting back and isolating, because it only leads to that spiral. And I want that for nobody. It is a lonely and dark place.
Yeah, I think I like, there's I work in healthcare. There's all sorts of people that have some mental trauma, things like that. But I know of no better antidepressant. There's antidepressants for people that are depressed or anxious and things like that. I know of no better antidepressant than to get out and just serve others. Go, whatever it is, break some leaves for your neighbor. I don't know, something, but that will help you more, like, better than any drug. I think it just makes you feel better about yourself, makes your neighbor feel better. I think it's service, which, you know, in the military, any military, that's your whole thing. You're in the service. They call it the armed services for a reason, right? And so continuing that service and helping others around you, I think, is great for your mental health.
Yeah, perfect advice. I love hearing that. So when we talk about hobbies on this channel, what hobbies do you have that get you out of your own head?
Yeah,
I mean, obviously you're busy as a PA, right? A physician's assistant.
Very busy.
You're
busy. When I can, I like to go skiing in the wintertime. I have a dirt bike. I like to dirt bike in the summertime. I don't know what else. Yeah, I mean, those are probably the two main hobbies. I have lots of other things that I'm a busy guy with church callings and things like that too.
Yeah. Well, I only mention that because, Adam, one of the first times I met you in person was at a workout. You and I did the Murph. I say did the Murph. I probably did part of the Murph. I was dying. But the Murph, for all the global audience, is a workout for Mike Murphy, I think his name was, who was a SEAL who was killed in Afghanistan. And he developed this workout that was just unreal. You wear a weighted vest, you do pull-ups, you do squats, you do push-ups.
It's a 1 mile run, then you do 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, and then run another mile.
Yeah. Well, I think I walked.
It's brutal.
I think I walked the last mile.
Yeah.
That was the first time when
I was working out, doing a lot of that stuff, some CrossFit stuff. I've kind of sustained an injury in my low back and stuff, so I actually haven't done that. It's over a year now.
Yeah.
Just because I'm struggling with this back injury and I can't get it better and stuff like that. But I try to go back and hurt it again. And anyway, so yeah, unfortunately, like you said, I put on some unwanted weight because I'm less active and things because of this back injury and stuff. But yeah.
Well, like everyone that I talk with who's been in that boat and who's in that situation, there's always a way we can start getting ourselves out of it again. And if fitness is related to just walking or non-reactive exercises that don't exacerbate your pain, nutrition is probably 90% of the key, and it's just limiting your intake and trying to eat healthy, staying away from all that processed stuff, which hopefully some of our new presidency and his comrades can help fix our food system in the United States, because it's worse than most places in the world.
True.
Yeah.
Get out of your dark basement, get out in some sunlight and go for a walk, do something. Yeah, that's gonna be good for you.
Yep. And my wife got me out today and we walked. I was like, isn't it cold out there? Isn't it like 30 degrees? And she's like, the sun's out, we'll be fine. And so we did. We walked for quite a ways, and it was good. Adam, thanks so much for joining us today and for sharing your experiences. I know that the global audience is going to love it. They're gonna relate to it, and I think that your stories will help other people take that step into the light again and find a way to repurpose their lives for good.
Yeah, I hope this helps people. I'm here for you, however I can. Any veterans, anybody that's been through some trauma, hopefully you can get through it, and this life it's not easy and stuff, but some of these things that we go through just make us stronger and stuff. So
yeah, well said, brother. And you always have a friend in me. So yeah, none of us ever need to feel like we're alone in our struggles, because we all probably have the same type of struggle, and we're all bonded in brotherhood. So I appreciate that.
For sure.
All right, Adam. Thanks so much, brother.
Yeah.